Now, tiny whoops are getting so good these days that having a sub 250 gram and more usually a sub 100 gram FPV drone that you can fly pretty much anywhere safely is just so much fun. 50 gram 1S tiny whoops surprisingly fly extremely well, and the ones I've reviewed recently can do all the acro tricks that a 5-inch can do. This HGLRC Talon 2-inch whoop is slightly larger. It uses 4S batteries and still only weighs 190 grams with a battery. But it's fast and very punchy. How does it fly, and will it fly acro? Let's find out. Hello and welcome to the Whirly Bloke channel. Now, I must admit, I've had a bit of an epiphany recently. The last few FPV drones I've reviewed have all used analog video, and I've sort of fallen back in love with it. I've been using digital ever since DJI released their first air unit, but flying these analog VTX whoops reminded me how much fun they are. I don't really need full HD video to post on YouTube these days. I mean, who wants to watch it unless you're Mr. Steele? And I don't feel the need to strap an HD camera on these whoops. I've got my larger 5 and 7-inch quads for that. These analog whoops are just so immediate. Maybe I'm just getting a bit nostalgic. Well, having said all that, this HGLRC Talon is available as either an analog 800mW switchable VTX or as a more expensive DJI O3 air unit version. I mean, the O3 version is more than double the price, and this analog Express LRS version is excellent. It's basically an injection molded frame with these ducts on. See this top part here, and then there's another bit here that bolts on with these 6 screws. It's a very nice little package, to be honest. On the top, you've got this carbon frame that the motors are bolted to, and the whole thing weighs 121 grams without a battery. Now inside this nice little case here, there's an HGLRC Spectra 15 all-in-one board, and the ESCs are flashed with Blue Jay, which is good at the moment, now that BL Heli seems to have disappeared. There's an 800mW switchable VTX here. You get this Cadex FPV camera on the front, and they supply this little 3D printed bracket to mount a naked GoPro or similar on the front. To be honest, I don't really want to put that on here, but it's a nice little touch. And they also have this neat slot on the bottom here for the heatsink that's on the bottom of the VTX. Motors on this are HGLRC Spectre 1303.5, 5500 kV with these Gemfan 2020 5D51 5-blade props. And if you prefer, there is a TBS Crossfire version as well. And I have to say, this is a very neat package that's very well screwed together and surprisingly stiff, although there are a few little niggles that I'll talk about a bit later. You get a quality battery strap, well actually you get 2 of them, and set of spare props, all very nice, and some spare bolts and things like that. And it's just a nice package. Price on this analog version is a very reasonable £128, or a whopping $330 if you want the O3 air unit version. So, how does it fly? As it turns out, very well, although I only managed 2 rushed flights with all the rain we've had this week. The pitch tune is pretty good, so it handles fast turns without any issues or prop wash, and there's not a sign of any yaw washout. And you can even do an inverted yaw spin without issues. Flight times using these GN3 720 mAh 4S lipos is around 4 minutes of hard flying. It's got a surprising turn of speed for a whoop, and is also surprisingly rugged. Injection moulded frames can be strong but quite brittle, but this has survived without any real damage. Although This VTX antenna tube on the back here broke immediately on a hard backwards landing, which was easily fixed with some tape. And this stupid little rubber flap underneath gets easily ripped out if you end up in branches or bushes. I've been flying without it because I just got fed up looking for it each time it dropped out. So if we have a quick look in Betaflight, it's flashed with 4.4.2 as it comes out of the factory. These are the PID tune settings that HGLRC have set, which clearly they've been doing some work on this because these are nowhere near the defaults. Quick look at the filters. Interesting. Anyway, this has got 8 meg black box memory, so we can look at this in a little bit more detail, and we can see that the noise performance of this, with the filter settings that they've got from the factory, is actually pretty good. There's a little lump there, but nothing that would concern us too much. So the only thing that I've changed is to profile the throttle, which I always do on these smaller whoops. Well, I do it on everything actually. The way I do that is to just fly around at sort of not just at one height, not doing too many maneuvers, and fathom out what the midpoint of the throttle is. It's somewhere between, well, this is up at 1300, somewhere between 1250 and 1300. So the way that I tune this is to go into the rate profile, make sure throttle limit is set to scale. I'll keep it at 100% and put this in about 0.28. So that's equivalent to 1280, if you like, in those settings. And I like to have a bit of expo around there, and that just gives me a bit more sort of what reduces the sensitivity around the mid-range throttle, and that does help a lot with controlling your quad as you're trying to fly level or accurately through gaps. So I think that looks pretty good, although I'll probably have a tweak and play with this when I get a little bit more time. Although this is small and safe enough to fly pretty much anywhere, it does make a slightly unusual noise. It's not the usual screech you get from ducted whoops. It whistles. Listen to this. It's sort of stealthy, but not that stealthy. And I can only put it down to these tiny little 5-blade props and the way they work with the ducts. So yet again, a sub 200 gram FPV tiny whoop that's great value if you get the analog version, enormous fun, and it flies like a much bigger drone. I'm really getting back into these small analog drones. But do let me know your thoughts on this great little tiny whoop from HGLRC in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, give me a thumbs up. And if you're new here, please subscribe. And if you're on Facebook or Instagram, you can follow me there as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.